Welcome to IELTS Success Summit. And in this YouTube channel, you can find everything you need to know about the IELTS exam, every section. And in this lesson, we're going to look at the reading section and a specific type of question called yes, no, not given. And this is a very similar approach to true, false, not given. And I would encourage you to also watch the video on true, false, not given, as both strategies are very similar. But it's important to know that there are also some differences between true, false, not given and yes, no, not given. So let's start with the differences between these two types of question. In true, false, not given, the emphasis is on identifying whether the facts are true or the facts are false, or there's no information given about facts. The slight difference with yes, no, not given is that the emphasis is more on the opinions and the views or beliefs of the writer of the passage. So in true, false, not given, we're looking for facts. But in yes, no, not given, we're looking for whether the opinions, we agree with the opinion, we can find that there's disagreement with the opinions or views or beliefs, or whether no opinion or belief or view is given at all. So those are the differences. What's the same about the strategy for each of these types of questions? Well, in yes, no, not given, as well as true, false, not given, all the questions come in order. And here's a little tip that's really important. When it comes to these types of questions, you'll have at least one of each. So you'll have at least one yes, you'll have at least one no, and at least one not given. So if you've come to the end of your set of questions and you've answered some yes and some no, but you haven't answered any not given, there's a really good chance that, and it's pretty obvious, that the question, if you haven't used not given, the answer to that question will be not given. So if you can't get a question, one of the strategies is to just keep moving, because maybe at the end you'll discover you didn't answer any of them with a no. So that question you couldn't get, if you haven't used no as an option, then the answer will be no. And the same is true for yes, or if it's not given. And the strategy for both types of these questions is the same. So what I would encourage you to do is to watch these two videos together. You can find the video about true, false, not given on the YouTube channel, and I would encourage you to watch that as well as watching the video you're watching right now. So first of all, the type of key information that we're looking for has to do, when it comes to opinions and views and beliefs, what's the purpose or nature of the statement? We want to be aware of that, because that will give us some good insight into the opinion or views of the writer. And again, we want to use our keyword strategy as we do by focusing on keywords like adjectives and adverbs. And again, another video you can find on my YouTube channel is the keyword strategy for the reading section. And you'll find that very helpful when it comes to these types of questions. But when we're looking for key information in yes, no, not given, we want to be aware of ideas that express possibility or may express doubt, because these are so often included in looking at opinions and beliefs. And again, paraphrasing and synonyms are so important to be aware of. And at the risk of repeating myself, you can find more information, detailed information about paraphrasing in one specific video about paraphrasing on my YouTube channel. So I really encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can find strategies for every type of question in the reading section, and you can find strategies for all the other sections of the IELTS exam, and find everything you need to know to have all the information you need about the IELTS exam. So the first thing, as usual, what we want to do is we want to read the instructions. So again, you can see the emphasis on the views. Do the following statements agree with the views of the writer in the reading passage? Yes, if it agrees with the views. No, if the statement contradicts what the writer thinks. And not given. So when it comes to yes and no and not given, if it's yes, you have to find a clear agreement with the view of the writers. You have to find that clearly in the text. And the same with no. You have to clearly find where it contradicts what the writer thinks. And if it contradicts it clearly, it's no. But if you don't find anywhere where it clearly agrees or clearly contradicts, only then would you choose not given. So this is a very important thing to be aware of. You have to find clearly where it agrees or where it disagrees. And if you don't find that, only then is it not given. So read the instructions. Never overlook that. You can raise your band score overall on the IELTS exam by half a point or a point just by simply reading the instructions with every type of question and task that you have on the IELTS exam. So we're looking for agreement with the views of the writer. And then we want to start with the questions. We always start approaching a passage by reading the questions first, because once we've read the questions and we've identified the keywords in the questions, we'll already have some familiarity with the topic of the passage. So when we do go to read or skim the passage for the first time, it'll already seem familiar to us. It won't seem like we're reading a strange passage. And this gives us a real head start on what we need to identify and find for answering each question in the exam. So what we're going to do is we're going to read the questions and identify the key words. Again, being very aware of adjectives and adverbs and words that could possibly be found as synonyms in the passage. So we've underlined electronic screen. That could easily be a synonym for a word like monitor when we're talking about commuters. Harmful, there's many words that mean the same thing as harmful. Psychological science, if this passage includes other types of science, we're only interested in psychological science. Connection, computer use, and then problems in teenagers. And again, teenagers is often a word that's synonymous with adolescence or young adults. So be aware of words that quite often have many different ways of expressing the same thing. We're going to underline RCPCH because it's a very unique term. It's all in capitals. It's an abbreviation. And because of its uniqueness, it'll be a very good clue in making sure we're in the right section of where we need to look for finding the information we need. And again, we have electronic devices, 60 minutes. Often 60 minutes can be expressed in a different way, like 1 hour. So just be aware of the different kinds of synonymous ways of expressing things. Online violence, mental well-being. It could maybe be expressed in a different way. And of course, whenever we see a proper name of a person or a place, we also underline that. And again, you can find a very detailed lesson about the keyword strategy on my YouTube channel. So don't hesitate to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You'll find it very helpful for anything you need to know about the IELTS exam. Now, one little extra step that we want to do in yes or no or not given is to kind of look for links between keywords, things that may be similar from one question to the next. Because when it comes to looking at opinions and views, there can be very subtle differences. So one of the best ways to recognize the subtle differences, the little differences, is to recognize the links or connections, the things that are similar. And by recognizing the things that are similar, it'll also help us to identify those little things that are different, and those little pieces of specific information, the little differences that can help us find our specific answer to the question. So when I just take a quick look at these different questions, I can see that there are some links and some similarities in the different phrases. And I just joined them together with these lines. For example, going to sleep at night. And then we see 60 minutes leading up to bedtime. So going to sleep at night and bedtime are very similar ideas, but there is a difference, and we'll want to be aware of that. But by noticing the similarity, we'll also become aware of the slight differences. We see a connection between problems and teenagers. What's one type of problem that might be discussed is mental well-being, because also identifying these links helps us see that in one case, we're just concerned about overall problems, general problems with teenagers. But the difference between number 2 and number 4 is that number 4 is very specifically talking about mental well-being. And then we have computer use and online violence. Computer use and online, the idea of being online, are very similar. But when we want to notice the differences and the specific differences that will help us and give us the best clues, it's important to see not only the links, but how they're different. So this is just an extra step that you can quickly do. Just again, by identifying similarities, it'll help you to notice the specific differences that are the best clues. So don't hesitate to take this extra step when it comes to yes, no, not given. So then we're going to skim the passage. And remember, we always skim the whole passage at once. It's something that we only want to do one time. So we read every word as quickly as we can through the whole passage, not just for the questions that we're looking at as we begin, but keywords that will help us for any of the rest of the questions that we'll be answering for this passage. But we're just looking at a portion here for the purposes of this lesson. And we always want to notice the title as well, Teens Not Damaged by Screen Time, Study Finds. And then we're going to underline what keywords will help us to identify. So when it comes to opinions and views, they're often based on evidence. So when we see something like little evidence of a link, okay, we want to underline that. Devices, general well-being. We did see something very similar that we underlined in our question, the well-being of teenagers. And this is, now we see teenagers' mental and general well-being could be damaged. And then we see a phrase just before bedtime. And we remember that we saw going to sleep and 60 minutes before bedtime as important keywords in our questions. So we know we're in the right place. We're seeing enough similarities and synonyms in our keywords. We see young people's mental health. We didn't see the word exactly mental health, but we did see mental well-being. So we know we're in the right place to find the answer to this question. So let's see. Viewing an electronic screen before going to sleep at night is harmful. This is a very clear point of view. Viewing an electronic screen is harmful. It's not maybe harmful. It's not might be harmful. It is harmful. And we can see right in the first sentence of our paragraph, there is little evidence of a link, between the amount of time spent on devices and their general well-being. But that's not specific enough because it's before going to sleep. And then we see even just before bedtime. And even that little word even shows that there's more of an emphasis on this. It says even just before bedtime, TV is not damaging. So if we see viewing an electronic screen before going to sleep at night is harmful, we can see that the answer is no, because it directly contradicts. It completely disagrees. The statement completely disagrees with the view expressed in the paragraph. And we have to see this clearly, that it clearly contradicts in order for the answer to be no. Now, if we go to another portion, remember we've skimmed the whole passage at once. We're just looking at a portion now. We've underlined psychological science. We've adolescent. There's the word that means the same thing as teenagers. We have digital technologies. We didn't see the word digital, but we know that that has to do with online and internet. And of course, we've underlined the name of a person and a place because we always do that with our keyword strategy. And so number 2, psychological science. We know we're in the right place. We have that exact word in our paragraph, and we see the word connection, and we see a synonym for the word connection is the word link. Screen use, similar to computer use, and problems in teenagers is the antonym for adolescent well-being. So what would be the answer to this question? Does it agree with the viewpoint expressed in the passage? And no, it doesn't, because it says psychological science can explain. But in our passage, it says it still routinely fails to supply with high quality, transparent, and objective. Okay, so now we see that it disagrees, and we see clearly the contradiction with our passage. So let's go to the next question. Now we have a long passage here. So I've just divided it up. We're going to underline where we see that abbreviation, which is the exact same as what we saw in the questions. And then we're going to see a recommendation that screens 1 hour before bed. So we know we're in the right place because we were looking for a reference to 60 minutes leading up to. So now we see the RCPCH advise. And in our passage, we can instead of the word advise, we see a synonym that says recommend, that kids should not view. There's kids is just another word for teenager. 60 minutes leading up to bedtime, and recommend that screens be avoided for 1 hour before bedtime. So does this agree? Does it agree with the viewpoint of the passage? Yes, it does. And we can clearly see the agreement. And so we know the answer is yes. And then we'll go to one more portion of the passage. We've underlined the key words again. And now we're looking to see whether number 4 agrees. Watching online violence is detrimental to the well-being. Again, a very strong opinion because it says is, not may or might. And we can look, and it says the study looks at how long children spend looking at screens. And then it says very clearly, dangerous online content can have an enormous impact on young people. But it doesn't totally agree because it doesn't say it does, it say it can have, which is very similar to may. And that means it's not given. And by the way, this would be the last question, and we had already used yes, we had already used no, but we hadn't used not given. So that gives us another good indication, because remember at the beginning of this lesson, I said that each one is always used once. So just be aware of the differences between yes, no, not given and true, false, not given. True, false, not given is based on facts. Yes, no, not given is based on opinions and views and beliefs. And I hope that you found this helpful. Again, I would encourage you to watch the other video about true, false, not given. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for everything you need to know about the IELTS exam. And I wish you all the best on your journey as you prepare.